Rocky Top Insider presents the RTI Lowdown with Bob Baskerville and Chris Lowe.
Welcome. Time for another edition of the RTI Lowdown. Coming to you a couple days late. There's been a lot going on, so we're going to break it down for you today. But first, let's say hello to my co-host from On3 Sports. Pretty connected guy, fresh off the trip to Philadelphia. It's Chris Lowe. Chris, how are you doing, man?
Hey, Bob. It's great to be with you, man. You're right. It's better late than never, but I'm glad we're able to get the show in this week after Tennessee's showing in Philly. The fact that they're back in the final or the Sweet 16. Maybe I'm being a little optimistic there, but back in the Sweet 16 for the fourth straight year. And I tell you what, man, the longer I watch hoops, I know you are a hoops junkie too.
Yes.
You realize just how hard it is to get to the Sweet 16 and to do it 4 straight years. The fact that Houston and Bama are the only other 2 teams, period.
Yeah.
It's a pretty short list. And I think it's a reminder for all of us, whether you're a Tennessee fan or just a hoops fan, that making it consistently to the Sweet 16 is quite an undertaking.
Yeah, amen. It's been a season of ups and downs. We've been talking about it with you all during the season, but this is the time that matters, and we're still standing. We're still standing, so that's all good. We've got a good show for you today. Like I said, bringing it to you a little later than usual because of all that's been going on. The basketball Vols advancing to another Sweet 16. We'll recap that electric opening weekend and look ahead to what will be a very stiff test coming up for the boys in Chicago this coming weekend. And we'll also talk Lady Vols basketball, whose season has come to quite an unceremonious end. But it's the off season that everybody's going to be watching so closely now. And Vol baseball wins their first SEC series of the season. A little tougher than expected, too. So a lot to discuss today. But before all that, let's give a shout out to our sponsor. This episode is brought to you by the Tate Insurance Group. If you are in the market for a great locally based insurance professional to help you with your home, your car, or business coverage, you don't need to look any further. It's the Tate Insurance Group, and we appreciate their partnership with the Lowdown. For all of you watching out there, we certainly appreciate it. If you're checking us out on the Rocky Top Insider YouTube channel, make sure you like and subscribe. Also, if you listen to us as a podcast, we love that too. We're available wherever you listen to your podcast. Please add us to your rotation. Make sure you download us and make us part of your regular routine. Topic A today, the Vols take care of business against one of March Madness's darling teams in the first round of the NCAA tournament. Then they advance to the Sweet 16 with a hard-fought, sometimes agonizing win in the second round. CeeLo, that first opponent in the NCAA tournament was a team that many were starting to think would be capable of giving Tennessee some trouble. The 32-1 Miami Redhawks from the Mid-American Conference matched up against the boys after winning a very convincing first 4 game against SMU. Now, the MO on Miami's game plan, I think, from a Tennessee perspective, was clear. We saw it happen against SMU. Miami hit 16 3-point shots in that first 4 win. Bottle that up, dominate the paint, and feels like mission accomplished for the Vols in that first game.
As I think back to both games in Philly, the thing that Tennessee, even though Virginia had some too, and certainly Miami started the game red hot, Tennessee just continues to guard the 3-point line pretty darn well. And a lot of the shots that both those teams made against Tennessee from beyond the arc were guarded shots. And I think when you look back at going back to the Miami game, Felix Akpar's ability to guard in the half court, really every position, and not only be a rim protector, which he's outstanding at that, but getting out on shooters and being able to move his feet well enough. And there were a lot of balls that Miami shot. There were several air balls after they got, I think they made their first 4 in that game, but there were a lot of air balls. And because they had people running at them, people in their face, people in their grill. And that's where, when you play a team like Tennessee, the Vols just wear on you with that kind of defense. And that was clear to me in that first game, Bob, that Miami got tired, and just the ability to not have good looks at the basket from three, and even some of the ones they made. But the Suter kid's a great player for Miami, and he just continued to drain them the whole game against the Vols. But they really dialed that defense up and didn't give them much of anything in the paint, and then took advantage of Miami's lack of size in the paint to score and get the ball inside. And I felt like you coming in that Tennessee had to, number one, guard the three, not just because, again, if you watch that game, I'm sure you were watching. I'm there in the arena saying when the game starts, good. I mean, this is exactly what Tennessee didn't want to have happen. This team get off and make threes. But I also thought a little bit that maybe there was a little bit of fool's gold, that they made those shots early like that. And you're thinking, okay, they're not going to shoot like this the rest of the game because Tennessee's going to guard it. And the other thing was Tennessee had to make shots in the paint, which they did. They were able to take advantage of them. So once that game got into the second half, you could sort of see it playing out there in person, that Miami just didn't have the horses. They didn't have the depth to stay with Tennessee, and Tennessee really put it on them. And those last 8-10 minutes, Miami got tired, and it was pretty obvious.
I think that, you mentioned it. I think they hit 5 of their first 6 shots. Miami did. And, Tennessee stayed patient. I was not so patient. I was getting a little worried those first couple minutes. But I think, what you said is for real. Miami shot over 40 3-pointers against SMU in that first 4 game. I figured there's no way Tennessee's going to let them get that many shots off. They were going to play it tighter. Miami ended up shooting, I think, 28 from 3-point range. And it felt like Tennessee just kept pushing them further and further out. Like you said, I think the combination of playing in the first 4 game and then the effort they had to exert to get to that start in the first few minutes against Tennessee, I think they started getting tired quick. And Tennessee does a great job of making teams uncomfortable on the perimeter, just kept kind of pushing them further and further out. I don't think I've seen a game at that level where there were 5 or 6 air balls by Miami in that game. It's just, I think that was a testimony to them being tired, but also Tennessee's defense, like I said, making them uncomfortable.
And, they had to fly in on, Thursday. They played a night game,
Right.
Miami did, on Wednesday. And that's part of the rigors of playing that first 4 game. And then you played on Friday afternoon in Philly. So that's a tough turnaround for anybody.
Yeah.
And then when you're going against a defensive team like Tennessee, it makes it even harder, Bob.
Yeah. And after they hit like we said, hit 5 of their first 6 shots, their first 4 threes, they only connected on 29% of their field goal attempts the rest of the way. And, Tennessee, typical formula, they also dominated inside, 42 to 25 edge in rebounding, 40 to 16 edge in points in the paint. The Vols race out to a 19-point lead. They never look back. They win 78-56. And the key thing here was they did it all without Nate Ament scoring a single point, because Jacoby Gillespie was spectacular. Maybe one of the best games I've seen from him all season long.
Yeah, he was great, and has been great in both games. He plays so many minutes. That's the thing. I sat near his family, and you watch this kid play, and he's like a dynamo. He just doesn't seem to get tired. And with this many games under his legs, and he's not the only one, it's got to be something that's affected him. But he doesn't show it. Hasn't shown it to this point. And his ability to make threes, and he's a pesky defender. Really anticipates well. That's the thing I like a lot about Jacoby is on defense, he anticipates passes and guys when they take the ball down, he'll take it from you. But no, he was great in that first game. He was great in both of them, and they're going to have that against Iowa State. They're going to have him playing at his elite level, which he's capable of, and we've seen that. But he's going to have to play very comparable to the way he played against Miami and Virginia for Tennessee to beat Iowa State. But it's a cool story. I like the fact, and again, talking to his family, he really wanted to play at Tennessee. He's a Greenville, Tennessee kid. He was really under-recruited, goes to Belmont, and would have come to Tennessee, I think, initially when he left Belmont, but Zakai Ziegler's there running the point. Zakai leaves. He gets a chance to come back and play his last year for his home state school, and it's been fun watching two things. I think number one, how much it means to him to play for Tennessee, and the way he's filled a void. Because when you come in behind as a Kai Ziegler, who's been the guy for 4 years, those are big shoes.
Yeah.
And he's jumped right in, no fear, plays with no fear, and is really one of those guys that when you watch, you love guard play, a guy who can do everything. He is that. The thing I think is most underrated about him, Bob, is when he gets to the basket. I know he's listed like 6'1". I don't know if he's quite 6'1". Maybe with his hair, he's 6'1", right?
Yeah.
He finishes pretty darn well, man. He get in there against bigger guys. And I didn't think really he got the whistle. A couple of times he went to the basket in both games. He could have got a better whistle, got bumped, and they didn't call it. But more times than not, he's finishing those plays. As good a shooter as he is, and he's got the floater, when he penetrates. But I love the way he finishes around the rim for not being a really big guard.
That's the football player in him, I think,
Mm-hmm.
because he's tough as heck when it goes under the basket. I mean, for his size, that should not be happening, but it does. He's great. I agree with you. He got good support in that game, even though Nate played limited minutes. They didn't really need him. JP Estrella had a great game, a double-double, 14 and 10 points. Felix Akpara, 12 points. Got a lot of dunks off of lobs from Gillespie. Gillespie had 9 assists. I mean, this one just felt like a pretty complete performance. Tennessee was ready for that Miami attack, and they locked it up pretty easily. And so they end Miami's enchanted season, and then they moved ahead to the second round, which was clearly not going to be as easy as the Vols would imagine. They were facing another 30-win team in 3-seed Virginia. And this one, Chris, Vols took control most of the game with the Cavaliers, but they did have to weather a furious Virginia comeback and also maybe battle themselves a little bit towards the end to punch their ticket for that 4th straight Sweet 16 appearance.
It's I say the good and the bad. It's the bad ended up being good. I think hopefully for Tennessee going forward I don't think Tennessee played their best game.
Yeah,
it sort of didn't finish the game, and that's been a bugaboo for the Vols all year long. Is they haven't finished games the way you need to against good teams, and they didn't really finish that game. Now they did right there at the very end, but they let Virginia back into that game with some really bad mistakes. Some bad decisions, some bad mistakes, and turned the ball over probably more than they're going to be able to going forward. And yet they still had the fortitude, and this is the thing I think you like about what happened. The fortitude, the wherewithal. They made big shots when they needed to. They made some key stops there at the end, got some key rebounds when they needed to win the game against a really good Virginia team. Virginia was seeded 3, and I think if Virginia we can look back. Revisionist history sometimes is what it is, Bob. I think if Virginia had played in the SEC, they would not have been a 3 seed in this tournament. I don't think they would have near the record. The ACC, I thought, was top-heavy. Duke's an outstanding team. Virginia was right there at the top. They won 30 games. But you go back and look at who they beat. They didn't beat Duke. And I don't think that league, the ACC, was nearly as good top to bottom. Certainly not in the middle of that league as the SEC was. And so I don't know that Virginia had been quite as battle-tested as Tennessee was. Yeah. And I thought that showed up for much of that game. Even though Virginia, they made some big shots to get back in it. They're big guys where they're able to pop out and shoot the 3.
Oh, yeah.
Make some big threes. Is tough to defend, and that's just a tough matchup for anybody. But as I watched that game play out, and you knew that Virginia was going to make a run, all good teams do, I felt like Tennessee was a little bit more battle-tested than Virginia. And I think in the end, that's why Tennessee won the basketball game.
Agreed. And, it's funny you mentioned that about Virginia and the ACC because that Sweet 16 composition right now, there's 6 teams from the Big Ten. The Big Ten has done really, really well in the tournament. 4 from the SEC, 3 from the Big 12, 2 from the Big East, and then only Duke from the ACC. Only 1 ACC team still alive. I think it kind of speaks to the level of competition we're seeing in all these other conferences too. Those teams seem to be battle tested, and maybe Virginia wasn't as much, but they were still a very game opponent. I'll tell you a couple things that struck me in this one, Chris, was first of all, Virginia closed the gap. They even took a 1-point lead for a brief moment. But then Tennessee, they tightened up. They regained the lead in the closing minutes, never relinquished it from that point. And a big component of that happening was, can't believe I'm saying it, clutch free throw shooting, something we haven't done most of the season.
Yeah, Tennessee goes up 9 there, and I don't know what you're thinking, but I'm sitting there at the game thinking, all right, they're up 9. And it's only natural. You're thinking, can they close this thing finally against a good team? We haven't seen Tennessee do a lot of that this year, and they really didn't because they let Virginia back in it. But then at the the last minute and a half, they did make plays they needed to. And the thing that I kept thinking too, all right, at some point Tennessee's going to have to make key free throws. If they're going to hold them off. Once they let Virginia get back in it, you knew that if the Vols didn't make free throws, they probably were going to lose. Well, they did. They made some free throws. I mean, Jalen Carey with the 3-point play.
Yeah.
How many times has that happened this year? But that's the beauty of the tournament is if you're going to go deep, it can't always be the usual suspects that make the plays for you, the guys that make shots that have made them all year long. You got to have 1 or 2 or even 3 guys, and not even shots, but plays or have performances on the defensive end or rebounding the basketball that they elevate their game, in these types of games. And we saw that from Tennessee. And I think you're right, though. If the free throw part of the tournament and the team Tennessee's getting ready to play, Iowa State, has not been a great free throw shooting team, much like Tennessee. But, boy, when it comes down to the last 3 or 4 minutes of the game and it's a 2-possession game, if you don't make free throws, you're not going to win. And I think when you look at what Tennessee did against Virginia, the fact that they did knock them down, certainly Jacoby there in that last minute was ice. I mean, I don't think the ball ever hit the rim.
Yeah.
In his free throws. So, yeah, you not turning it over, not giving up second chance points in those last 2 or 3 minutes of the game and making free throws. Those are the 3 parts of the game, Bob, over 50 years of watching the tournament that never change.
Absolutely. I mean, again, and shout out to Ryan Shumpert from RTI for this compilation stat. Tennessee is now 16-1 when they shoot better than 70% at the free throw line. They shot 76% at the line on Sunday against Virginia. So it's pretty simple math. They're 8-10 when they don't do it. You got to make those freebies, and they did. And like you said, Gillespie, and I've been hard on Jacoby this season. There's been moments where I'm like scratching my head and, ticked off by some kind of bonehead turnovers he's made late in games. I think we should attribute some of that to, I think the kid's tired a lot of times. He's playing 38 minutes a game. He's doing so much. But, man, he was clutch in this game. It reminded me all the way back into the Vegas Players Era tournament against Houston when he had to hit clutch free throws. He nailed every single one of them, and he did it in this game too. That was big. It was a balanced attack too, Chris. Nate Ament provided a lot more offense in this one. He still doesn't look 100% on the floor to me. And he struggled with a couple silly turnovers in the second half. But you can tell that guy wants to be out there. He's playing on an injured ankle. He scored 16 points. So frustration points aside, he's another reason we don't win the game without Nate Ament.
No, I said coming in, they were going to need 15 to 20 from him to win. And I'm glad you brought Nate's name up because this is a different era of basketball. What guys making of his ilk so much money, and they have such unbelievably promising futures in the NBA. You're talking contracts worth 20 and 30 and 40 and 50 and $60 million. And the last thing anybody wants to do is get hurt, and have something that's an aggravating type injury that lingers and could potentially cost you down the road. And this is the beauty of Nate Ament. And I think if you've ever met any of the members of his family, and there again, I've had a pleasure to do that. Why Nate is the way he is he wants to play for Tennessee. He wants to play for the guys around him. He wants to play for the fans. Nate is not thinking about what he's going to be doing this time next year. He's thinking about right now. And there's no way. Listen, everybody that loves Nate, his family, they're worried about him, but talking to him there in the hotel the night after the Miami game. They're like, "There's no way he's not going to play. There's no way, and he's going to give everything he has." And it's pretty cool to see a kid like that going out on I don't know what he is. Is he 70%? Is he 75% on a bad ankle? Coming off a game in which he went over. Think about that. First game you ever play as a freshman in college basketball, the tournament, you go over.
Yeah.
Your ankle's hurting, you're limping around, and he comes back and responds with 16 points. Again, not close to 100%, in a game that they had to have him. No way do they win that game, Bob, with him not scoring. And he gives them 16, makes his free throws, takes some tough fouls, and I think that's going to be the key for him and everybody going forward is Tennessee's got to get to the line against this crowd, against Iowa State. They have got to get to the free throw line and make their free throws. That's good. And Nate's been as good at that, certainly the last back half of the season. He's been as good at that as anybody. And so being aggressive and continue to draw fouls. But no, I've got all the respect in the world for him. And, Rick told me before the season, he said, man, his family's unbelievable. His upbringing, and I wrote about this in Nashville, his whole family, his brothers and his mom and dad, and just sort of what servants they've been in different parts of their life. And when you have a chance to sit down and talk to them and meet them, you see it's very obvious, why Nate's attitude is what it is. And it's someone who covers the sport and has seen the bad side of NIL and the bad side of kids who are straight mercenaries and couldn't care less at the end of the day about what happens with their team. And Nate is the antithesis of that. He cares 1,000% about his team and about Tennessee, the fans, and Coach Barnes. That relationship is pretty special, Rick Barnes and Nate, and you can see that by the way it's played out. So I hope for his sake that he gets even better, can continue to get the treatment. Chad Newman's maybe the MVP, the trainer of that the team for 30 plus years. He's going to be the MVP this week as they try to continue to get that ankle a little bit more ready to play Friday, and then hopefully for Tennessee's sake on Sunday again.
Yeah, amen to all of that. And shout out to Nate's brother. I think you told me, is it Manny, that you said that's a fan of the lowdown?
Yeah, Manny's a big fan of the RTI Low. They said he watches it, and Manny's the oldest. Manny's 28, and he was there. Great fan. Meet everybody there. Nate's coach was there from high school, and pretty cool turnout from all the Vols parents. Getting to meet Jacoby's grandparents, sat right behind us, and just to sort of see the fraternity of moms and dads and brothers and sisters and grandparents. And, the thing that they all talk about is the culture and the chemistry that Rick Barnes has built in that program. And that's something that just continues to manifest itself when people come out of there, because no one around those kids will sugarcoat it. They'll tell you that they knew when they signed on that Rick was going to be in their brothers or kids or grandkids' grill the entire time they were there, but they want that.
Yeah.
But they also know that no one's going to love them harder off the court than Rick Barnes. And again, I think I would say this is Tennessee's deepest, most talented, most skilled team under Rick, but they're awfully close. I think you see that pay dividends in the big moments of the games.
Yeah. Jacoby Gillespie, we talked about the free throws. I want to put something out there because, first of all, he had 21.6 assists. The line itself is not as impressive as the game against Miami, where he had 29 points, 9 assists, 6 threes. I would argue this game against Virginia, that was a better performance than the Miami game. And I can't imagine where we are without him. And I wanted to share this stat with you that I found. And Jacoby's place in opening weekend tournament history is noteworthy here. CeeLo, it says here that there are only 3 players that have had 50-plus points and 15-plus assists in the first 2 games in the NCAA tournament in a given year. Those 3 players. First one, Billy Donovan on the 1987 Providence team that went to a Final Four. Mm-hmm. Kemba Walker on the 2011 UConn team that won a national championship, and Jacoby Gillespie. in the past 2 games we've watched. I mean, it's special stuff.
So what you're saying is Tennessee's going to the Final Four. Is that what you're telling me?
Or winning it. Why not, man?
One or the other, right?
Let's do it all.
No, those are great. Those are great numbers, and that's watching him play. Again, I can't stress enough, Bob. At this level, when you're playing 37 and 38 minutes, there's no way to know how difficult that is. And in those last 5-6 minutes of the game, you're not sucking wind, but you're playing on adrenaline. And to play at that level that he does, playing those minutes is pretty incredible. So you're right. He's carried more. He's probably had more on his shoulders. I don't know if any other player in the SEC has had more on his shoulders than Jacoby Gillespie has this year for Tennessee.
I was having a debate with a friend of mine, and I stand by it. And part of it's the nature of the position. But I think you could argue that if you think back to Dalton Connect, Chaz Lanier, Jacoby Gillespie these past 3 seasons, and they've all been great in their own way. But I think Jacoby might have been the most important of the 3 transfers. And it's partly because those other guys, they're scorers, and they're obviously integral to the team's success. But Jacoby has had to do so much. I just shudder to think what this team would have been like without him this season.
Yeah. Well, the other two had a guy named Zakai Ziegler playing with him.
Exactly. We were in good shape on guards, right?
And Jacoby does not. And you're right. I don't know if they get someone in that's half the player or 60% the player of him as he is to run the point. I don't know if Tennessee makes the tournament. They would have been on the bubble. That's how valuable he's been. And again, I think it means something to that kid. It really does to play his last year at Tennessee, growing up an hour and 15 minutes from Knoxville and seeing Tennessee his whole life as a kid and being an under-recruited kid coming out of high school despite phenomenal numbers. I mean, he had huge numbers in high school. And so much of the time in East Tennessee, kids get overlooked because, you're not playing in Memphis, you're not playing in DC or LA, you're playing whether it's true or not, or whether it's fair or not, you're playing against competition that recruiters look at and say, well, not the greatest high school competition, but he also played a lot of AAU ball and did well. So no, I think it's a great story. And it's a reminder too, and listen, Rick's brought other kids from this area in, but it's a reminder that when you got kids, Deshaun Bishop, same way in football, that are in your backyard and they put up great numbers and they want to come and it means something to come play. Sometimes you get a little bit extra from those kids. And I think you're seeing that now with Jacoby Gillespie as he plays his final game. I'm sure he and everyone on that team hopes he plays 4 more games.
Yeah, no doubt. And we've talked so much about Nate and Jacoby. Real quick to put a bow on this Virginia win. Everybody contributed. Bishop Boswell, what a game. I mean, and he had kind of disappeared for a little while, but he was back. 13 points, 9 assists. We had a shooting guard for this game. 4 big threes from Bishop. Jalen Carey, efficient. You mentioned him a little earlier. 10 points in 16 super important minutes because JP Estrella got into early foul trouble. JP, when he was in, I thought was effective. Scored, I think, 10 points in that game. And then Felix Okpara. We heard so much about Virginia being the number 1 team in the country in blocked shots. And they do. They've got some guys in Grunlow and Onyensu. Felix had 4 blocks. And, I mean, his ability to impact a game, not just with the lob dunks and all that, but defensively has been at an elite level for a little while now.
Well, he had 4 blocks. I bet he had conservatively 5, 6, maybe 7 more shots. I'm thinking back as I go through my head in that game that he altered. So over and above the 4 blocks, there were, I can say this, I think pretty safely. There were 10 shots in that game that he either blocked or altered and they didn't make. I mean, think about that. That's potentially 20 points. And his ability to defend, to go out and defend the entire half court, guys are smaller than him, guys that handle the ball and get in their grill when they're making shots and be a rim protector has been a huge difference for this team.
Yeah.
It's made a massive difference, especially when you set your defense up the way Rick wants to set it up. They have they've been able to do some things differently on defense because of his ability to be so versatile as a defender. And I think, when you look at basketball this time of year, if you can't make stops, if you can't make other teams' shots hard, teams are still going to make shots, okay, even when you guard them. But if you can't consistently do that and make them hard and really make them work for their shot, I don't care how good you are on offense or how many three-point shooters you have, at some point you're going to get beat. I think that's what has enabled Tennessee when maybe they aren't as good or as efficient offensively as they have been the last couple of years. That's what's really enabled him to get to this point. And he's been the centerpiece of that. It's fun to watch him play. It really is. And I know it's maybe I'm old school. I saw where Rick said the other day, if we're up to him, we'd play basketball from 15 feet in. The old DeVoe, Don DeVoe theory. But to watch Felix play defense, man, is a thing of art because he is really, really good.
No doubt. And then the last thing on Virginia is it was kind of nice to see the things that have kind of hamstrung us during games this season. Those turned out to be the things that did Virginia in this game. They didn't shoot at the free throw line well. Their ineptitude shooting around the rim, they were less than 50% for the game. At one point, they were 3 of 15 on their shots inside, like right around the basket. And I mean, I'll take it because, boy, it feels like we can relate to that. We've watched that happen all season with our guys, and it was nice to see it wasn't us for once.
And again, I think you go right back to Akpara and JP. They're getting ready to play a team. I know we'll talk a little bit more about Iowa State here in a minute. Iowa State is a terrific defensive team. Every bit as good, if not better, than Tennessee. And here's the thing: they don't foul. Iowa State does not foul. They play defense without fouling. And JP, to me, is one of those guys when he's on the court and he's sort of in a rhythm. And here's the key part: not in foul trouble, which he was the other day.
Yeah.
Tennessee is a much, much better basketball team. So I think that's the thing. He just can't get in early foul trouble. They're going to need him. And the silly, it's one thing if you're contesting a shot and it's a 50-50 call, but the silly fouls, he's got to get away from that because he's just too good and too valuable to Tennessee to be sitting on the bench for 12 minutes in the first half. I mean, that's a killer. But no, I think the fact that they were able to get away. Think of this, two different times. So Nate in the first game is over. Okay. Second game, JP's in foul trouble seemingly the entire game. Now he did come back and make two major his turnaround shot, which was a tough shot, maybe one of the top 2 or 3 shots, most important shots of the game. But when you get 23 points, I guarantee you this. I guarantee you. If you would have talked to Rick Barnes before the game and say, Rick, you're going to get 23 combined points from Bishop Boswell and Jalen Carey, he would have taken it in like a nanosecond.
Yep.
And I don't think anybody would have thought at that point that Tennessee wasn't going to win the game. So for Boswell to get 4 threes, he hit the first one, which almost set the tone for him, the very first one of the game, right off the tip.
Right.
9 assists. And here's the thing I think that really separates the game for Bishop. He didn't turn the ball over a single time in the basketball game. 0 turnovers. And if he can play, I don't know if it's fair to think he's going to make 4 threes and not turn it over against Iowa State, but, if he can come just close to that and play that type of smart, savvy basketball game with the way Jacoby's playing against Iowa State's backcourt, that's huge. And Carey getting 10 points in 16 minutes. And I thought he was way more decisive when he got the basketball against Virginia. You didn't see a lot of indecision. He got it, used his body, muscled, got the ball up. And they gave him. And they're going to do this same with Dwayne Brown. I guarantee Iowa State's game plan will be the same. When those guys flash in the lane, 8-10 feet, they're leaving them wide open. Yeah. And then one time, Jalen took the shot and made it. Those guys can make that shot. So I think having – the confidence and the ability to make those shots in the paint because they're going to get them was huge. But I just can't emphasize enough that if you're going to win, and it's going to be the same way Friday night, it can't just be Nate and Jacoby. You're going to have other guys, maybe Ethan Berg, maybe Boswell again, maybe Carey. somebody off the bench, Amari Evans. Defensively, he may probably help contribute to one of the biggest defensive stops of the game. But some of those guys are going to have to make some shots and elevate their games offensively to maybe where they were in the offseason. You see it every year. I mean, Tennessee's had it happen to them over the years. I go back to the Purdue game when Grant Williams was there, and they had the kid who shot lights out against them.
Ryan Klein.
Yeah, I mean, and so it's like clockwork. And it was good to see Tennessee had that work in their favor against Virginia. And I think they're going to have to get it again to advance past a really good Iowa State team.
Yeah, and that's a great segue. We'll take a couple minutes and talk about that. The Vols are now 24-11. They move on to Chicago. This Iowa State team, they're the 2 seed in the region, and they have spent, to my recollection, almost the entire season in the top 10, even some weeks in the top 3 or 4. I feel like there's a lot of similarities to the Vols in their approach, in the way their season ended, because they finished their regular season 4-4. They kind of hit some rough spots, but now they seem to be dialed back in. But I think they play a lot like Tennessee. Like you said, they don't foul, but they grind on defense. I think they shoot a little better than Tennessee. They definitely have one guy, this Milan Momcilovic, who shoots over 50% from 3-point range, and he shoots a lot. And they have a point guard, Taman Lipsey, who casts to me a lot of Zakai Ziegler vibes. He's kind of small. He's tough as hell, does a little bit of everything. I think the key for them is going to be what happens to their best player is Joshua Jefferson, and he was out in the Kentucky game. They still won the game going away, but he's got a high ankle sprain, and we can relate. We've been going through that with Nate. I don't know if Jefferson's going to play, but that makes Tennessee, in my opinion, I think there's a real opportunity for them in this game, because I think the Vols can defend these guys. I don't worry about that. I'm going to be worried about how well Iowa State defends and what their rate is of steals. And we saw it against Kentucky. They forced 20 Kentucky turnovers. This one's going to be a big game. What do you think? What's your biggest concern in this game, Chris?
Yeah, Tennessee taking care of the ball, just what you said.
Yep.
They forced 20 turnovers. And remember in that game, at one point, Kentucky was ahead 9 or 10 points.
Yep.
This is a team that has the ability to change the trajectory of the game pretty quickly with their ability to shoot the three. They turn you over, and that's a pretty deadly combination when you've got a team, not just one or two guys. They got several guys that can shoot the three.
Yeah.
And they force turnovers. So that game swung from essentially a 10-point deficit for Iowa State that they were firmly in control, and it didn't take a whole lot of minutes to do that. I think the second thing would be how many shots they get. I think they took 16 more shots in that game in Kentucky.
Yeah.
So think about that. They forced 20 turnovers. They took 16 more shots. So Tennessee's got to cut that down. I don't think Tennessee can turn the ball over double figures and win this game. I really don't. They've got to keep their turnovers under. Because you don't want to give a team that shoots the ball like this crowd does. You don't want to give them more opportunities.
Right.
You just don't. It's like playing an offense in football that's just high octane. They go fast. They can score at will. You want to limit that offense's possession. So if you're turning the basketball over, then you're giving them more chances to score the basketball. And I think that's, to me, if you're looking at it from Tennessee's perspective, not turn the ball over and try to cut back on how many shots they get at the basket and really guard the three. And I know that's what Tennessee under Rick has always been pretty prolific at guarding the three, but you play hoops.
Mm-hmm.
They're guys you call no-leave guys.
Yeah.
All right. This guy's a no-leave guy. These guys got a lot of no-leave guys.
Yeah.
And if Joshua Jefferson plays, I'd say it's 50-50. I bet he's going to try to play. The latest report is that he's making progress, getting better. High ankle sprains aren't easy to come back from, certainly not in a week. He's going to try to play. I think to me, the question is, how ready will he be? We saw this with Nate against Auburn. He comes back against Auburn and was lights out, scored 27 points. Is really the reason Tennessee won that game. He had to play a day later and was just not himself. So in this case, Jefferson's had a week to get ready, a little bit more than a week, or right at a week, I guess I should say. How healthy is he? Because when he's on the court, with their shooters, that's a tough deal. They're a tough team to guard. But if he is not playing or is just maybe more of a decoy, then yeah, it becomes certainly a little bit more manageable for the Vols.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with all of it. I'm seeing the same stuff about Jefferson, John Rothstein saying he's continuing to progress. I bet he does try to play. I think Iowa State's 4.5-point favorite. I think the other thing too, are you going to Chicago for this or?
It's still TBD.
Okay.
I got a day job, Bob. I got a day job that I know. I'm not like you, man. I actually have to work every once in a while.
Yeah.
I jest.
Yeah. No, I know. I will tell you this because it's up in Chicago. The other two teams up there are going to be Michigan and Alabama. Between Michigan and Iowa State, I have a feeling they're going to own that venue. I hope Tennessee gets a decent showing from the fan base because it's a late night game. It's going to be a tough one all the way around. But if Tennessee happens to win, they'd play the winner of Bama and Michigan. And I'd have to hope it's Alabama we play if we get that far because Michigan looks like they are on a mission right now. That's honestly, that's my pick to win the whole thing.
Yeah, I agree. I think Michigan's the best team. If I'm a coach scouting everybody left, they're the team I least want to play right now. Is Michigan. Exactly. Their size, their length, their ability to get second chance points and score the basketball. They are I think they're the most complete team.
Yeah.
Left out there. Now, I'll say this. The arena in Philly was certainly pro-Virginia. I don't know if it really came across on television. Yeah. But when Virginia made their run, that place got pretty loud.
Interesting.
And certainly when they went ahead, it really got pretty rowdy in there.
Yeah.
So it was not anything close to being a home-type game for Tennessee. I think there was probably more Virginia fans in Tennessee, which, listen, Charlottesville to Philly's about 3.5-hour drive, maybe. So yeah. It wasn't a terrible drive for them. And I think these games this time of year, it's not like you're going to Ames, Iowa. There's the tournament there's more fans. I think kids are used to that. They played all year in hostile environments. I rarely have been to a game in the tournament. I've been to tons of them all over the country where I walked away and said, you know what? One of the big differences in that game was Team X had a lot more fans, a lot more support than Team Y.
Yeah.
It just so much gets down to being able to make big plays, key plays, big shots, and have a chance in the last 4 minutes. I think that's the thing with Tennessee is they've been in – how many games have they just not been in the last month and a half?
Oh, the last month and a half? None.
Yeah. They've been in every game. And I think it's got to give them some confidence. Even though they've got to clean it up, they did finish that game against Virginia. And that's in the back of their heads. Hey, we know why we're a 6 seed and not a 2 or 3 seed because we didn't finish some games we should have. So here's their chance on the biggest of stages when it's win or go home to prove they can do that. This is a pretty tough-minded crowd, and they've continued to bounce back. And what I've seen in them is that they don't take no pretty easily. They're going to hang around. And I think if they hang around and make this 4-minute game, both teams, as you said, neither team is great at shooting free throws. Both teams are dynamic defensively. It's probably going to get down to, 2 or 3 shots, 2 or 3 stops on defense, who wins the game. And that's what I love most about March Madness. As you get to this point with 16 teams, there's just a difference. There's a difference in playing this game than going to Rupp Arena in late January, or going to Tuscaloosa in early February. These types of games, every dribble, every shot, you just sort of feel it. And that's what makes them. I think, Bob, this is the greatest sporting event in the world is March Madness. I know people will argue, hey, you got the Masters, you got the Super Bowl. It just, to me, with the finality of it all in March, it doesn't get any better than this.
I'm with you, man. 100%. We'll talk a little more ball here in a second, but first, want to mention our sponsors, the Tate Insurance Group. They're your local insurance team. They're proud to call East Tennessee home, and just like our Vols, they know what it takes to overcome obstacles, to give their all, and show true volunteer spirit for our community. Whether it's home or auto or business coverage, doesn't matter. They provide personal service you can count on. And again, they care about what you care about because this is where they live too. The Tate Insurance Group, local, trusted, always in your corner, right here at home. You can learn more about them by going to their website at tateinsurancegroup.com or call them. They'll take your call. Be happy to have a conversation with you about what they can offer. Area code 865-862-8233. That's 865-862-8233. The Tate Insurance Group. And as always, certainly appreciate their support of Chris and I and the Lowdown. Jumping over to the Lady Vols for just a minute. Yeah, about the Lady Vols. Early exit in the NCAA tournament, that's not a surprise. And now the postseason fallout that has already begun for Kim Caldwell takes center stage. They fell behind in the first half by a lot against NC State in the first round. They actually rallied to make it close in the third quarter, but then they fizzle out again late in the fourth. Fitting way to finish an incredibly disappointing season. The Lady Vols lose 76-61. Season's over. 16-14 record. After getting to a 14-3 mark on the season, the Lady Vols go 2-11 to finish it. 8 losses in a row. Most significant, how badly this team got beaten in most of these losses. And lots of locker room discord in the end. And the defections have already begun. 2 players. Denia Prawl and Alyssa Latham have entered the portal, and there's more on the way. We know Kim owned why the season got sideways in her postgame comments, and that's noble enough. But is that going to be enough for her to keep her job, Chris?
I think she'll keep her job. I think number one, Danny White was a little bit out there on the limb, hiring her in the first place. He believed in her. He believed in her style. Felt like she probably had that. The ability to play in such a way that not many teams play and like that, and that she would be able to recruit to that system. And, after 2 years, whether you agree or don't agree with Danny's philosophy, is it fair to assess that in 2 years? I don't know. I think the bigger question is, does she have what it takes to fix it? Can she fix it? Does she have the experience? I mean, she's won at a lower level, and that doesn't mean she can't win at this level. She coached it 1 year at Marshall. Before that was the lower level of basketball. It's just a different world in the SEC. It's a different world playing against the teams they play against. And she admitted that, hey, I got away from what I do midseason. I tried to sort of recreate, and that it didn't work. I think, though, it's deeper than that. She lost her basketball team.
Right.
And we could sit here all day and debate her system and the substitution patterns and trying to press versus not trying to press the whole game. When you lose your team, it doesn't matter. She lost her basketball team. And I don't know that the players in that locker room liked her, liked each other. I think it was all the above. But when you sat there at the podium, maybe it was true, maybe it wasn't true. And you say, any coach says, I've got a team that will quit on you. And you say that for public consumption, well, 2 things are going to happen, okay? They're going to be so pissed and so mad that they go out and they play with their hair on fire the rest of the season, or they're going to say, you know what, screw you, we're done. And unfortunately for Tennessee and Kim, the latter is what happened. They were done. Yeah. They were done. And so those are the type of things, when you start talking about experience, it's not always on the court. It's not always as far as coaching acumen. Because it's not fair to me to say whether Kim has or doesn't have the coaching acumen. But so much of coaching is pressing the right buttons and being able to connect with your team. Coach them hard, but be wise enough and savvy enough to know what to say and what not to say. Those typical things you keep inside the locker room, Bob.
Yep.
When you say that, and you're only a second-year coach, you got some new at that school, and you got some new players on the team, man, that's a massive gamble. And it backfired in a big way. So we'll see. I think you're going to need about 2 have gone. There's no way I don't see Cooper being back. I'd say they're going to need anywhere between 5 to 8 new players when it's all said and done.
Yeah. Yeah, it's going to be a lot to overcome, and the pressure will be so ratcheted up on her next season if she's here for a 3rd season. So time will tell, but this is going to be one we're going to be watching closely, and it's a tough pill to swallow for a once proud program to be kind of hitting a wall like this. Doesn't mean it's insurmountable, but there's a lot to make progress on in the off season. Let's jump over and wrap things up with a little baseball, Chris. Vol baseball had another successful week by and large. Not absolutely spectacular, but they start with a midweek win, 10-3 over Eastern Kentucky. And then they followed up with a home series against, in SEC terms, a lower tier Missouri team. And the expectations for most of us was to get a series sweep. Well, turns out Missouri is a little better this season than people expected. The Vols lose the first game of the series on Friday night, but then they rally to win on Saturday and Sunday. They win the series. They improve to 3-3 in SEC play. And to put things in perspective, 3-3 is not a great start in those first two series, but that still only puts Tennessee one game out of a tie for first place because everybody's beaten everybody in the conference right now. And so I look at it this way, Chris. There's some promising things we saw in the weekend. Cam Appenzeller had a great game on Saturday in relief of Landon Mack. Pitched 4 2/3 innings, allowed only 2 hits, no runs, struck out 7. Might have saved the series for the guys, quite frankly, because that carried over into a big win on Sunday.
Yeah, and you're perfect segue. I mean, I'm looking at the standings right now, and I think a lot of it just says a lot about the league. It's going to be a war of attrition all year long because they're always going to beat up on everybody. Well, welcome to SEC baseball. You think SEC football and basketball is cannibalistic? Well, baseball probably of those three sports maybe the most. And Missouri's not a great team, but you go back and look at their games, the scores of their games, even the first weekend. They've been close in everything they played. And I think the Tennessee being able to come back and win those last 2 games at home, when you lose the opener there at home, everybody's down. I know you have a hard time believing this, but Twitter and talk shows are ready to fire Josh Elan.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that's surprising, isn't it? Did you get that kind of backlash from some of the Tennessee fans?
Well, they're right. He stinks.
Being a little facetious. But they come back and they win 2. And I still think the starting rotation, Tennessee starting rotation, pitching is going to give them a chance in just about every series. Listen, if they don't lose it there, and the bullpen I think will be pretty good too, but the bullpen let them down a little bit against Georgia that last game. Well, they're sitting here with 2 series wins. If Lawless's home run or almost home run is 2 feet longer, then they probably win that game. So they're not that far from being 4-2 and tied for first in the SEC. They gotta be more. Here's my biggest concern about this team right now is they've got to hit better with people in scoring position. They got to hit better with guys on base. And that's something that they've struggled with for much of this year. Now we've seen them get a little bit better at that. And I think going back to even last year, and it wasn't the rosiest of starts for Tennessee when Tony was here.
Yeah.
But they got better. They hit better in crucial situations. This is a team. You're already starting to see Jai say, "I'm going to tinker a little bit with the lineup here. I'm going to give some guys some shots." If you're not hitting, you don't get a lifetime pass to be in the lineup. I like that. Keep that competition. You want to give guys confidence that you're not going to bail on them just because they have, a bad 2 weeks. But you also want to give guys a chance to hit that are maybe sitting on your bench, or at least move them up in the order.
Yeah.
And you've seen that. So they go to Vandy this weekend. Vandy's 2-4 in the league. Has not had a very good season at all, but it's still Vandy. It's still Tim Corbin.
Yeah.
They're really tough to beat there in Nashville, really for both teams. This is a series I think whoever can win this series, I think can sort of spring forward and get some momentum and have a chance to make a run. The loser of this series, it may be tough because there's still a lot of really good baseball teams on both teams' schedule the rest of the way. So a critical series not only for Tennessee, but for Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt sort of had their way with the Vols last year, but over the last 5 or 6 years, Tennessee's been the better program than Vandy. And you talk about a testy rivalry between these two clubs. Now with Tony gone, I don't think Tony and Corbin exchange Christmas cards. That's just a hunt. Does it change? Maybe a little bit, but still, these two teams would like nothing better than to beat the other team.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. And you mentioned that Georgia series. Georgia, by the way, um, I believe they're up to maybe number 4 on one of the polls. So I mean, that's a good Georgia team. We were right there. Could have won that series. So yeah, I think there's things to be optimistic about. Levi Clark hits a home run in this weekend series. Be good to see his bat get going. Garrett Wright continues to rake. Evan Blanco has, for me, he's been the most impressive of the starters. I feel he's got full ownership of that Sunday starters role. So, yeah, let's get this midweeker against South Carolina Upstate out of the way and then go to Nashville, hopefully win a series there. They're ranked 22nd nationally. There's a lot to be gained here with this team, so I'm optimistic about that. I wanted to say one last thing. Quick note on Lady Vols softball, Chris. The ladies lost their first series of the season again to a very, very good Florida team. So Karen Weekly's bunch falls to 28-3 on the season. They dropped from the number 1 spot down to number 4 in the rankings. What is going on with the softball team, Chris? I don't know.
How can they have the audacity to
Yes.
to lose a game? You know what my advice is, quite simply, enjoy the ride.
Yeah, right.
It's everybody wants to go to a Final Four. Everybody wants Tennessee and baseball to get back to the College World Series. Everybody wants the football team to get back to the playoff. They want the Lady Vols to break through and win it all in softball. This is a pretty darn good run, what we've seen from Tennessee athletics. Is it perfect?
Oh,
no. Have there been some hiccups? Yeah. I mean, this is a big season, obviously, for Josh Heupel football, to not have another sort of mundane season stacked on top of each other. You're going to have a brand new quarterback. But you look at the men's basketball team, and I know it was a really disappointment what happened with the Lady Vols and hoops, but the men's basketball team, to me, sort of epitomizes what you want in a program. Does everybody want a national title? Yeah. Does everybody want to get to a Final Four? Yeah. Well, Tennessee's never gotten to a Final Four in men's basketball. But we had this conversation in Philly with several longtime fans and donors. I wish you could have been there to pick up the tab, Bob, but you weren't. But anyway, we had this conversation. What do you want in a program? Do you want a program that every single year is a top 10 to 20 team, and every single year has a team to not only get in the tournament, but make a run in the tournament, to get to the Sweet 16, to potentially get to the Final 8? And that's what Rick has built at Tennessee. And I'm here to tell you, someone who's covered Tennessee hoops for 50 years, that ain't always been the case.
Yeah.
Not even close. So enjoy this ride. Whatever happens with Iowa State, this is the golden time in Tennessee basketball history. And you know what? The way things work out, of all his teams that have been to the Sweet 16, this would probably be the one, if I'm being completely candid, that I would point to and say probably has the least chance to get to the Final Four. But the way things work in hoops, maybe this is the one that gets to the Final Four.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which would be a pretty cool story. So I love consistency. I love knowing every year when they tip the basketball up that your coach, whatever school you're at or follow or donate to, you've got a coach that's going to have your team ready to go and going to represent the university. I should knock on wood. When's the last time Tennessee's under Rick had anybody on that team who's embarrassed the university off the court?
Pretty much never.
Never.
Yeah.
And every year, that team's got a chance. You're going to bring in 5-star kids. You're going to bring in top transfers. They're going to play together. And when you get to March, they got a chance to make a run. Yeah. Things got to go right. And I think that's, again, the best way I would explain it. That's what he's built here at Tennessee. And fans better enjoy it because he ain't going to be coaching forever.
That's right. That's right. Well, that's a good way to wrap this one up. We'll be back next week to hopefully talk about the Vols heading to their first Final Four. You never know. We'll also have another recap of all baseball and their week of action. As always, we'll cover it all for you during the week right here at Rocky Top Insider and RockyTopInsider.com and all our socials. So keep it locked in there for the best Tennessee Vol coverage anywhere. Reminder to hit that like and subscribe button for the show if you're watching us on YouTube, or download our podcast wherever you listen to your pods. Make us a part of your regular rotation. CeeLo, appreciate you as always being a part of this show. I hope you have a great week ahead. And if you go up to Chicago, be safe up there.
Yeah, can I borrow your jet? your jet to get up
My
there?
jet. I have no jet. I got a little toy one, but anyway.
No, it's been a blast. I look forward to the games, all the games this weekend. My favorite time of the year, Bob, is certainly once we get into the Sweet 16 part of the tournament.
Yep.
If you're a hoops junkie, it's nirvana.
Absolutely. I'm with you, brother. Thanks to all of you out there watching and listening. We'll look forward to joining you right here again next time on the RTI Lowdown.